What we want to offer you today is a panel of experts from a smaller perspective to a bigger one. Is all right? So today we have David Garcia Perez, Michael Gustafsson, Jorge Pegadolis, and Daniel Gassman. Why did I choose this order? Because we want to move from, as I said before, from a smaller perspective to a larger network perspective. Each one of the presenters will have the time to introduce himself to the audience. And what we plan to do in this session is just to ask some horizontal questions that can be answered from each participant. So since we have, I think, a little bit of time, why don't you present each one before we start with the official presentation? Why don't you start with presenting yourself? Let me start with David Garcia Perez. David. So just a brief introduction about what you're doing, your company.
Okay, thanks, Henry. Chimera is really a startup company that was founded 2 years ago and focusing on the sustainability arena. So our main concern was how to really develop projects on this field through small and medium companies. So we developed a cluster of private companies around the world that we incubate projects on the energy, mobility, water, and then buildings in terms of sustainability. So and we try to make all together R&D projects in order to really develop breakthrough technologies.
Okay. One cluster that I've been personally at is Cluster 55 in Sweden, specifically in Malmö. So Michael, can you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, my name is Michael, and I'm the managing director of Cluster 55, which is a non-profit network organization in the cross-border region between the greater Copenhagen area and the southern parts of Sweden. And what we do is we run sort of a dating service. So we actually help small companies and startups from our region to do business with and get collaboration with other partners in Europe and the rest of the world. So, yeah.
So now we want to have a Portuguese perspective, please. Jorge Pegado.
Hi, thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is George Liz. I'm representing ADI, the Portuguese Innovation Agency. We are a state-owned agency owned by two ministries, Ministry of Economy and the Ministry of Science. Our main mission is to promote technology-based innovation and applied innovation, meaning we are giving support to R&D projects between companies and universities, and also to add value to those results through the international networks that we are taking part, such as Eureka in Europe, Iberoeca for Latin America, and Framework Program. So this is what I'm doing.
Thank you. Daniel Gassman from the European Enterprise Network, Enterprise Europe Network.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. So I'm from an agency which is called Executive Agency for Competitiveness and Innovation, which is an agency from the European Commission. And in fact, we are the back office for managing the Enterprise Europe Network. And I think that most probably we'll be talking again from this network afterwards.
Yes. Thank you very much. Well, and finally, my name is Henry Lopez. I work at Atos and working on European projects. So that's why we're trying to do a lot of research and innovation that's going to come up in the future. So let me briefly start a presentation. Find this. So why networks are important? Usually when we look at the networks, we look at the size. When somebody asks, any of the persons here says, how big is your network? And I think that we are missing something. And there is the danger of not seeing the trees for the forest. So you start asking the size of the network, who is in there. But what actually matters is the interactions that make those network happen. So the trees and the orchestrators. Here we have the pleasure to have the orchestrators of those large forests. They're responsible to know and to help you out to get in the right person, to know what's going on in each field that you want to get and enter into. What is... recently I launched a survey to many European companies and American companies and ask them what type of collaboration they are usually having and performing. As you can see, only 10%, if you see at the end of the slide to the right side, only 10% of the companies are not doing any type of collaboration. They engage rather in university collaboration. They are part of a cluster. They are part of a network. They use supplier alliances or any type of relationship. That is what brings them some benefits. So why is this important? Why is to be part of a network, to do open innovation important nowadays? Because it can accelerate your time, it can help you to bring new knowledge, and it can help you to get more results. That is why people are doing open innovation or are participating in international networks. Just want to give you a very small example, and I don't know if you can see the slide there, but that's something that a person from Philips provided me, and that's how they are actually collaborating in international markets. First, they try to look in something internally, and if they cannot find it, if they cannot find a solution internally, then they start to move to other external markets. What does it mean? So they try to go for a startup. So if you look at example from not only from Philips, but if you look at the biotechnology and the pharmaceutical industries, Pfizer gets usually in contact with those small startups in biotechnology to get fresh insights. Why? Because the development time takes a long time. They do some technology brokerage. What does it mean? Participating with clusters, participation in innovation networks. What else do we have here? Expert at outside innovators, so getting in contact with consultants and so on. So finally, I just want to tell you a final recommendation that I usually, which is a framework that I developed, where you have to consider on the hand right side of the slide, that are the sources of external knowledge, which are necessary to have a larger open innovation capacity. You need to start doing external collaboration. You need to have that, but also be aware that you need to develop your internal capabilities. Train your people to be aware and to be willing to work with clusters and with other networks. What are the benefits? The speed, the portfolio impact, the openness, and you might minimize the risk. So, with all of this, now I want to stop talking and begin with some questions that we agree that might be interest for you, but we also want to leave some time probably for you if you want to ask some questions to these experts. So, in the order that we established before, so the first question, I think we start here first with Chimera. So, for the last month, let me ask you some personal questions. That's the objective of this session. So, for the last month, what you have been doing to enrich the relevance of your network? So.
Okay, Henry. So at Chimera, we are very strong into detect companies that could provide something different that we have right now in our consortium, in our cluster. So we have a team of people focused on the research of different companies around the world. So specifically focus on that. And they travel around the world to analyze that companies and really see what kind of synergies we can establish with them. So this past month, we started up our office in Shanghai, in China, and we are right now very focused on emerging markets because we think that the big innovation right now is starting there. So we are usually focused Europeans and Americans that we are the clever guys. So despite that is not happening at this moment, and the opportunities are right there. So international expansion, so to really develop an international cluster that we are able to share the capabilities and know-how of several companies around the world is our main focus during this past month. So especially in China, in India, and even in Africa. Okay.
about you, Michael? What have you been doing?
Yeah, well, I'm trying to increase my personal international network all the time, so I've actually been traveling a lot to different types of meeting places. So I've been to 2 very boring conferences in Brussels. But the breaks are very good, so I have met around 200 new contacts during the past 1.5 months in Brussels, in the UK, in London and Sheffield, in Portugal, in Porto, in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam, and most of them I actually connected with afterwards through Facebook or LinkedIn or other social media, because I live on my personal contacts and actually giving them out later on to the companies which we help. So that's what I have been doing. I'm going to Barcelona next week to do the same thing. Yeah.
So I hope that we meet there. Jorge.
Thank you, Harry. Well,
What is that you're trying? Go ahead.
Yeah, well, to tell you a bit about what we are doing now, I need to give you a bit of background, meaning Eureka is a network, European network with 39 countries, where the chair is held every year by a different country. And Portugal has had the opportunity to have this chair twice, 97, 98, and 2008, 2009. And both our chairs were very geared towards international cooperation outside Europe. So in the first chair, we did for the first time ever, a meeting in Macau, and a very big event in Macau, and we signed a cooperation agreement with China. And in the last chair, we actually challenged the Eureka network to create a new sort of status, the associated country status. So we sent out the invitation to third countries that had participated in Eureka. We now have South Korea as an associated country of Eureka. Canada is in the process of becoming an associated country. They're already participating in the meetings. We have talks with Brazil, Argentina, and also South Africa. So this to give you a dimension of what is happening in Eureka in terms of international cooperation. Other activity which I think is very important due to the current financial and economical crisis that we are all facing in Europe, and the problem of lack of liquidity in the banks. There's no money to give to SMEs, to lend to SMEs. So we've been studying together with the European Investment Bank, the European Investment Fund, new mechanisms, new debt and equity mechanisms to support Eureka SMEs to bring their products and services to market. So this is what we've been doing lately. Thank you.
Great. Please, Daniel.
Thank you. Michael, I'm impressed. 200 new contacts in 1.5 months. It's really it's a good performance. So I would say on a personal level, what I did for my own network was to go to a very interesting conference to Munich about intellectual property rights. And there I met very good people, but not as much as you. At professional level, in my network, we organized a training for newcomers in the network. We organized a meeting with the chairs of what we call the sector groups. And we also finalized works of a working group about access to finance. So that's my experience in the last months.
Well, I hope that the audience got a perspective how these companies are complementary to each other. And if you talk to one, it's not the same talking to other. So rather a complementary aspect here. So now let me continue with the second question, which is, if you want to impress the audience now, please let us know what is the most interesting outputs that you have seen in the last years coming out of your network. So the stage is yours. You can impress them with the best results.
Okay, so in the area that we are focused at Chimera, that is mainly sustainability, what we face during this past year, that is a lot of chat about countries must bet for renewable energy and all this kind of stuff. But at the end of the moment, and at the end of the day, no one sees sustainability at his home. So we really wanted to make this happen, so make sustainability happen. So because energy and mobility are two very tough sectors to really develop business because they are so mature, so they're very big barriers and big companies working on that. So how small, medium companies can compete on that. So we're very so focused in how to develop research and to market products or technologies or new business models on these fields and really go to the market, okay? So, so one of the examples that we were so busy this last year was how to position European companies in the electric vehicle industry, okay? So how to impact, how to really show knowledge, capabilities, and really be a leader worldwide, okay? So we decide that one of the main fields that the electric vehicle industry could also be a platform to be developed was the motorsport industry, okay? Because it's a field that could be used as a laboratory to really develop technologies. So right now we position Chimera as the leader company right now in the electric motorsport field with partners like, for example, a very well-known company here in France like Altran, that is the largest engineering firm here in France, that has bet with us and other small and medium companies because they have no know-how to sell his services to the big OEMs. So they see on us, in our very tiny company and all the consortium members around Chimera, the opportunity to really develop projects that has a specific strategy. So right now we have projects in the pipeline with very well-known OEMs. We've been in Japan talking to these manufacturers in order to develop the technology that we just proved on the motorsport field and even to develop it even more for street cars. So perhaps what's happened is that big companies in this example are really focused on his current business and they don't see more ahead. So showing them making things all together, these small medium companies are easy to really develop business and position our work in a way that anybody could imagine. Okay.
We look forward to see that motorcycle on the street. Please, Michael.
Yeah, okay. Well, we are a very down-to-earth organization, and I'm an old sales and businessman, so I like to do things that are actually measurable. So when you asked me this before, I thought of two things. Last year in December, we took some companies from Sweden to Austria, to Vienna, and helped them with matchmaking. And one of the companies that work with business intelligence actually got home with our first international customer during that week, and a business worth around 500,000 euros. So that's typically what we do. And this spring, when I was in Copenhagen on a conference, I met the innovation director of Singtel, which is the largest mobile operator in Indonesia. And when he told me about their needs, I thought about a small company that I knew of in Malmö who works with 360 degrees imaging. So I took him over to Malmö and introduced them. And when he left, he had made an order for the small startup for 150,000 euros, which was a large order for them. So I mean, we try to be very concrete in what we do and try to measure everything, and that's sort of the happiness in my work.
Okay. So Jorge, please let us know some interesting outputs coming out of.
Yes, of course, the most interesting results and outputs is the projects, the successful projects, the ones that are able to develop new products and services that lead to highly qualified jobs and the creation of wealth. I have a few two companies that we saw being born and that are now big companies operating internationally, critical software and alert technologies. I picked out some examples of Eureka Eurostars projects, such as the Safe Drive between M3 Systems from France and our airports, that have developed a relatively low-cost solution to tracking all the moving vehicles inside an airport. This is still being done by eye, which is when it's foggy, it can be complicated. And just now we learned that they have created a spin-off and they are trying to sell this in the US.
What did you do in that project? What was the contribution coming from you?
Our contribution is always on the part of the funding of the research.
Okay.
So companies come to us to present their projects. And so what we do essentially, this was the next question, but is we give funding directly and indirectly through tax incentives. Right. Another example, safe luggage, they are trying to develop, and this involves IATA, the Air Association, develop a smart bag that can be traced within the airport and that you can actually see where it is when it gets lost. Eco Train for the TGV, for the high-speed trains, involving Alstom and Amorim, our biggest cork producer, to bring cork composites to the trains. There are many examples. I could spend a lot of time here, but to say that for me, really, what I look for is the outputs. The good outputs are the results of the projects, successful ones.
Right. Daria?
Thank you. So now maybe it's time that I explain very briefly what is the Enterprise Europe Network. So this network is composed of chambers of commerce, of regional development agencies, of innovation institutes, of universities. And this network has an objective which is to help companies to take most advantages out of the single market. We know that the single market is a huge market, but it's not so easy to address. So thanks to the Enterprise Europe Network, it should be very easy to do so. So I would say in terms of figures, in terms of achievements, we are very proud because we have now reached, in 3 years, we have reached 2 million clients. We have organized maybe about 10,000 events in the 3 years. We have brought 66,000 companies to international fairs, to matchmaking events, and we have about, let's say, 4,500 business deals which have been documented. We know that we have much more than that, but at least we have the documented deals. So we are also looking at a lot of the outputs, and I would say that we have some figures which really show us that we are achieving very successfully to give the European added value to our member organization.
Thank you. Usually when you're a small company, you try to join a network because you might meet new people, new partners. That's the main goal. But the question now is, if we leave that out, we assume that you get some benefits in terms of knowing new people and meeting new people, companies. Leave that out. What are the benefits of joining or talking with you today? Why should people come and talk with you to ask you that questions, to see the benefits? Please.
So, people come with us because individually each company is not has the problem is, especially in the sectors that we are working, is that they are very tough. So companies are financially strength. So has not the capabilities, network, and know-how to able to succeed. So when they really see an opportunity to sell something, to sell a product, they forget their R&D because they are financially constrained. So have the opportunity to join forces with others, share know-how, IPs, technology, and people to really develop something bigger and more focused on a specific business model managed by people that are entrepreneurs and people that are businessmen, okay? So makes them the opportunity to really succeed and make it faster, make it cheaper, okay, and with very low risk. So for them is nothing to lose, everything to win. Of course, the key is how to organize all this. No, so Chimera is the hub that sees what company could provide to overall project, to that specific project, okay, and to make the project alive, okay. So of course, Chimera has a portion of this project for this effort and for this work, and even to provide the finance. But these companies have the occasion to not to die in the way to be success. So it's very difficult for companies that are mainly managed by engineers, especially engineers, to really share things, to really share know-how, to really not to work with himself, with ourselves. So we try to transform that because the benefits are exponentially bigger if they are organized. All these companies from engineers are organized and focused on a specific thing. Okay.
Thank you.
Well, I think that companies within our region should talk to us, to Cluster 55, because they will get access to our network of networks with about 10, 12,000 international contacts within the ICT community. And that is not a database. That's actually my personal contacts and the contacts that the people I know. People outside our region should contact Cluster 55 because it gives them very easy access to some of the most interesting high-tech companies in the Scandinavian area. So my colleagues' job is to know as many people as possible, and especially those who work with the latest innovations and the latest technology, and that's mainly why people get in contact with us.
Just one question. Do you have any equipment at Cluster 55 or managerial advice that you can also offer there? I don't recall that. Do you have some type of facilities? Is that right?
Yeah, what do you mean by equipment?
Yeah.
Well, we don't have databases and things like that because I personally don't really... I think databases are good if you just want to look somebody up. I mean, we collaborate a lot with EN, for instance, and their framework. But when it comes to business, it's always on a person-to-person level. So I mean, we try to go one step further. We try to build things on person-to-person things. So we actually don't focus that much on concepts and methods because in large companies that's good, but we are a very small organization, so we actually build a lot on just inspiration and hard work and meeting as many people as possible. So I wouldn't really say that we have some facilities, of course. We have an office and we can arrange a lot of meetings, and we also, there is a lot of companies from outside our region that actually visit us, and we help them with contact. So just some months ago, we had a large delegation from Portugal, for instance, who came to us and who will help with matchmaking. And I think we arranged 60 meetings in 2 days for the people who were coming. And we have had delegations from France and the UK and all over Europe and also outside Europe.
Yeah, but I say those things are also important because when people meet together, try to reframe the challenge that they have, the scientific technological problem, and continue with that. That's one of the advantages that you can offer at those meetings. So, Jorge.
Well, like I mentioned before, our mission is to support, to promote entrepreneurial technology based innovation, and also the valorization of the results that come from those projects. So we do this mainly by running support schemes, funding schemes. Right now we are running a scheme that's called co-promotion. That means it's consortia between companies or between companies and universities. And of course, we always try to give this an international dimension through the networks. We also have a tax incentive scheme where companies can deduct up to 32.5% of eligible expenses. So it's tax they don't give, it's tax that they keep. And there's always also the aspect of the promotion of the results, meaning we organize big fairs called Innovation Days every 2 years, where we show the results of the projects to the general public and also to specialized audiences. We do this also through our participation in Enterprise Europe Network. So we help companies find partners for technological transfer. And we do brokerage events nationally and internationally, namely in Latin America, where we've done a series of brokerage events together with Iberoeca.
And in Enterprise Europe Network, the good reason to meet us is, first of all, to get better information about Europe in general terms. So first of all, what is EU legislation? What are the EU policies? What is the European founding which is available? So that's the first task. Second task is to help companies to find partners. I think that's the key part. And this is done, as said Michael, it's done first of all through a database because we need to identify the potential contacts. But then I would say it is made by men and women. So the human contact is ensured once the contact has been established on a technical way. So these are good reasons to meet the network. I just want to explain again that the network is working on a regional level. So the contacts are done at regional level. So we see here ADI in Portugal, which is a member of the network, or Cluster 55, which is working in collaboration with the local Enterprise Europe network. So if you are in the Paris area, I invite you to get the little brochure, which is available at the Chambre de Commerce et d'Industrie stand, because here in the Paris area we have the Chambers of Commerce as well as OSEO, which are a member of the Enterprise Europe network.
Well, continuing with this session, I'm sure from what I read, most of the companies here are SMEs or micro companies, very small ones. So I would like to now ask you, how is your cluster, your organization helping those SMEs, specifically and particularly SMEs and micro companies that come and talk with you to get in contact with large companies? So let's assume a very small organization, 5 to 10 people, wants to talk with Philips, wants to talk with Pfizer. How do you make those connections? How do you coach them? Because I assume it's a coaching process too.
In fact, in Chimera is not only a coaching process. So what we want to really see if these companies has a breakthrough technology. So in order to know it, the best way is introduce his technologies as pilot programs in well-known corporations, because people, especially in sustainability, see these technologies implemented on big corps. Mm-hmm. They will be aware of that, okay? So in Chimera, what we do, one of the things that we do is to really provide our network to these companies to implement his technologies. And with all of our team, we analyze if that is a breakthrough, okay? So to give you an example, for example, one of the hype technologies right now is all the small wind, all the small wind sectors. So apply wind energy to the cities, to the roof of buildings, okay? So there's a hype of many companies on that. So what we do is to make pilot programs of different technologies in very relevant corporations that people will see, okay, these guys are testing that and they are doing a good enough big deployment, okay? So Chimera has, through his board and of course his cluster members and especially his board and steering committee, access to very big corps, especially in Europe, but also internationally, where we use these corps as a platform to really test and to really see if technologies are good enough right now to perform and to really be economically be able and able to compete in the market. So, but we don't only provide the context, so we really define how to do that, what is going to be the objective, okay, and if it works, okay, how is going to be the business model and the spin-off that we want to create with that tech companies, okay? So mainly is through our network of businessmen that comes from our board, especially as an example, our chairman is a strategic advisor at Banque Privée Monde Rothschild, that is the biggest family office worldwide. So network is huge, so we can arrive when we want. Okay, but always focus on to really make something that could be viable, economically viable. Okay.
So it seems that you have an established process on how to help organizations, SMEs, and identify breakthrough technologies.
Yeah, well, we are actually organizes tech pitching events for the small companies and the SMEs and the startups in our region on a regular basis. So last week we had 12 companies in Silicon Valley, for instance, and we organized pitching sessions for them with Apple, Google, Facebook, and IBM, and some of the large companies there. So we do it outside of the region, and we also do it inside our region, since we have Sony and the Ericsson companies and Microsoft and IBM and those large companies in the region as well.
Do you have a name for that event?
No, we just do it on a regular basis. So, I mean, it's normal tech scouting. So what we do is we find 10 or 15 companies that we think are interesting, and then we help them to get in contact with these large companies. And as I said before, we have a very large international network. So what I typically do, if I have a company, I have a company in our region, for instance, who have a very new, interesting technology for making the dark look like daylight. So you can apply that on a windscreen for a car, for instance. So when you drive at night, it will actually look like daylight. And that's, of course, interesting for the automotive industry. And they wanted to meet BMW. So what I did is that I phoned some of my friends that I had in Munich, and one of them happened to know the CTO of BMW, and he arranged a meeting for them. That took me, I don't know, 15 minutes. It's actually not rocket science. It's just, it's more transpiration, actually. You need to
as an innovation,
meet a lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah, because there is a similar initiative in Silicon Valley that, especially in San Diego, that probably you are aware of, which is San Diego Connect, where they try to connect small companies with large ones, and so they can share some knowledge and insights. The benefits are obviously for both of them. So let me continue with Jorge.
Well, in Eureka, as I mentioned, we are a network of 39 agencies, so-called, where we try to help SMEs look for partners. As was mentioned, we are part of EEN, Enterprise Europe Network. That is also one of their goals, is to try to do this partner matching. We are now currently also running Eurostars. It's a program that is specifically targeted at research-performing SMEs. Projects that are led by small companies, but that usually have the participation also of larger companies. And there I would also like you mentioned, we have also the Eureka clusters, mostly on ICT, but also on water and new sources of energy. And these clusters consist of the largest companies in Europe. And of course, this is where the SMEs also play an important role when they define certain standards, and they all collaborate within these clusters. We also have a role under the framework program, under the 7th framework program, especially under the cooperation area, where you find a lot of large companies involved with SMEs. So it's also our goal to try to get those SMEs involved in these projects.
Well, in the world you have clever men and women in SMEs as well as in multinationals. So in SMEs, the clever men and women, they will connect to Enterprise Europe Network and they will get their company profile there in the databases. And the clever men and women in multinationals, they will be subscribing to the database updates. And there they will see some new technologies from small companies emerging. And then they will pick up out of these some which are useful for their own business. And we have quite a lot of examples of big companies which are just fishing in our database some interesting emerging technologies. So it's really working very well. And then we have some more advanced partners in the network who are in fact training SMEs on how to get in contact with big companies. Because in the end, when you're talking about private funding, it's not so different than public funding in a certain way. So we have some partners in the network which are just teaching to the SMEs on how to manage relationship with larger companies.
Exactly. Just to give you an example, something that has not been mentioned and it's coming up recently in innovation, which is the innovation intermediaries. I don't know, probably you have heard about those Sigma, Innocentive, and all those companies that try to get insights from smaller companies. So now we're switching from SME to the large companies. So large companies, what they're actually doing is creating some platforms. You can see the Connect and Develop from Procter & Gamble, where if you can answer some of the challenges, you might get money. Or you can join platforms such as your Anchor, where your expertise is important for the scientific challenge. Or you can collaborate with an intermediary easily and say, hey, I have this, as a large company, I have this problem. Can you find someone to help me with this? And I saw lots of examples on how SMEs benefit from that. And that not only addressing challenges at a European level, but also from at the American level, so Europe, the States. I remember one example that I saw is General Motors wanted to solve one of the problems that they have with the engines. And they say, apparently in the States, they were not so developed in compared to Europe because the green rules are more strange here and more difficult to accomplish. So why don't we start to look for partners in other markets? At the end, they found one in Finland. So that's another level of collaboration that you should try to have with innovation intermediaries. So we are close to, we're really close to close the session. What I will suggest right now is rather we take a question from the audience, or I leave you 1 or 2 minutes to explain some of the details that we couldn't match. So do we have any questions on the audience? Coming from the audience? Yes? No? Apparently they are quiet. That seems no. So let me give you 1 or 2 minutes to explain some of the things that have not been mentioned throughout the session. Do you agree with that?
Shall I start?
Yeah, go ahead.
So maybe we change once from the back. Well, I mean, of course, I can only invite you to meet my colleagues from the Chamber of Commerce or from OSEO to see in which way the Enterprise Youth Network can help you for your business development. Maybe there's something which has been said at the very beginning by Henry, thanks for mentioning it, which is that in a globalized world, it's more and more important to be networked. So one way of being networked is, of course, to be whether in a scientific community or to be even in the alumni association of the business school or whatever. But I think that it's more and more important that SMEs are networked with partner SMEs in other countries in order to provide some integrated services at international level. And this, of course, addresses mainly to SMEs which are in the area of services, of engineering, meaning that if there is one of the member of the network which has a demand from a client, let's say in Germany, for instance, German SME has a demand from a German company to get some expertise from another country or to get some services in another country, then it's very important to have a network set up in order to get a lean management of the client that people have. So there's some very good examples of SMEs, totally independent one from the other, and that have been put together in networks in order for for giving a global answer to specific demands. So really, very good examples of SMEs being networked. Maybe I can just quote one of them, which is a network called ENAC, which is a network of independent headhunters, which are in position, in particular for big companies, to cover a very wide range of geographical coverage. So one thing very important, get in touch with the Enterprise Group Network to see what they can offer to you. But secondly, try to find out a strategy in which you may join SME networks, in which you can pass one client to the other because you cannot satisfy the demand because you are more nationally based. So get in touch with Enterprise Group Network and try to sort out your own SME independent network.
Thank you. Well, of course, leaving out multinationals and SMEs already with an international dimension and experience, for those SMEs that still have the ambition to develop new innovative products and access new markets, I would recommend them to look for state agencies like our own, OSEO, which is here in France. Look for international networks such as Eureka, Iberoeca, Enterprise Europe Network, the framework program through Cordes, that's the website where all the information is. Also diplomatic missions and foreign trade support agencies at national and regional level. Look for the technological platforms and the clusters that are relevant to your activity. Look for universities and other scientific and technological entities to find knowledge and partners. Universities, we have from our experience seen that they can provide SMEs with a lot of expertise, a lot of experience and know-how, and access to their own networks. Finally, for companies that wish to approach us, what kind of companies we are looking for? Well, we are looking for companies with an international ambition. They need, of course, to be open to cooperate with others, other companies across border, to have the capacity and the willingness to invest, but also to be ready to fail and learn from failure and keep insisting, having a clear objective, a clear strategy regarding the way they want to develop and which markets they wish to enter.
I would like to point out a key aspect that I don't know if the audience has spied, that there's a key difference between Chimera and the organizations represented by Daniel, Jorge, and Michael. So the key difference is they are public organizations, and Chimera is a private whole organization. Okay, so really to we decided to create Chimera because we think that to really make happen partnering between companies must be a profit activity. If not, it's going to be something impossible to achieve. Let me say, Chimera, what it's trying to do is for his work to develop this partnership between companies, to facilitate introduce his technology into the market, to really define the business strategies for these companies, has a portion of the spin-off that is generated from all this work. Okay, so this makes things happen. If this has been managed by a public body or a non-profit organization, so now has this motivation. So, of course, has the motivation for European companies or the companies from each country to make things move forward, but has not a profit motivation. So there's one reflection that Silicon Valley started not by because the U.S. government decided to let's do a place in San Francisco, focus on technology, and let's put all the companies together. This has happened spontaneously because there were a private university that created this cluster spontaneously and making these things easily and focus on to make profit. for example, Stanford makes a lot of profit from patents from the spin-off that have been created there. Okay, so I think that in Europe we are going in the wrong way. Chimera is, I think, an example born here in Europe that would like to show that perhaps public money, even in that times that all the European countries are bankrupt, is not the way to go.
Okay. So, just wanted to point it out to you that even though we are a public organization, we are actually fully funded by our members and the membership fees. So we are very driven of making a profit of what we do by ourselves. But that was just a comment. Everybody is so nice here, and everybody is agreeing that we should do more innovation and so on. So since you are in France, and since I know that you in France love debates and actually arguing about things, I've seen that on television the latest days. I will finish up with saying something about what I actually think, because I have a friend who is a researcher in macroeconomics, and I actually studied that once at university. And we talked about the crisis in the world, and he has this reflection that well, the US will somehow get through this because they're so good at doing business in the US. And in China, they're so good at production, so, and India, so they will kind of get through this recession. And in Europe, well, we are very good at planning and agricultural support. So that is somehow a problem. And actually, I kind of agree with him. I think we should start working now instead of starting up new initiatives and kind of relying that let's start up a new innovation agency in Brussels and hope that they will fix everything, because they won't. Because innovation is actually, from my perspective, a bottom-up movement. And as Henry said before, open innovation is partly key to things. And open innovation for me is a bottom-up thing. It's nothing that you can decide in Brussels or in Paris or wherever you are that let's start with this. So you need to have a bottom-up approach. And doing business is a lot about quantity and meeting a lot of people. You can't solve that from Brussels either. So from my perspective, actually, these types of events that we do now, everybody should take the chance to meet as many people as possible and not only talk to the people that they normally talk to, because this is actually a way forward to do collaboration, not through new EU initiatives and things like that. And I'm sure that many of you agrees with that.
Well, finally, let me thank the panelists for the great insights that we received today. Secondly, to the audience for being here and listening to us and being so patient, though the food might be there. So just don't forget the suggestions that we had. Contact your network, as you say, Daniel. And finally, talk to as many people as possible today and enjoy the conference. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Great, thank you.